Good morning. My name is Dana Schmalz. I'm happy to be at this conference of the Vienna Center for Migration and Law, and I generally work on migration law, international public law, legal theory. So I'd say my work is sort of in the intersection of these three fields. I particularly have been interested in the relationship of democratic theory and refugee law. That's been the topic of my Ph.D. thesis quite a while ago, but somehow also the topic related to the topic of my presentation here at the conference. And more recently, I've written a book about population growth discourse, and particularly about birth rates and how the discourse, the fears, the concerns about this topic have influenced politics and law. Yes, I'd say that we hear a lot about integration as a term in the context of migration debates, but very often there's just a reference to problems of integration, demands of integration, and there's very little definition of what this integration actually means, and particularly what the legal framework is for this integration. So I think what we see is a bit discourse where integration often serves the purpose of marking difference, marking control of the host society, of the society where immigrants arrive, towards the migrants. And when looking at the actual legal regulations, the picture is much more nuanced because integration does not really lend itself to such a unilateral demand concept. It's actually something that is situated in this combination of requirements and rights. So my presentation argued that the what we see sometimes now with legislation about integration is something like legislative signaling. So also legislative projects that really want to communicate to the non-immigrant majority society, we're doing something, we're demanding something towards the immigrants. But then when looking at the actual regulations, it is something where we would have to delve into the details of administrative law, of how is access to language classes provided, and how are then the demands towards immigrants passing a language test, or how is access to the labor market provided, and what are the demands to integration in the labor market, etc. So in some way, integration is a concept that is an interesting place between rights and requirements, but in the political discourse, it often just serves this as this marker for difference and asking people to fulfill certain expectations on them posed by the host society. Yes, I think we often have, not just as a traditional picture, but also in recent discourses, this idea that the path to becoming a full member is sort of never ending. We now had more recently attempts to introduce possibilities for denaturalization for naturalized citizens. So the idea that even once you have become a full member of the political community by naturalization, by becoming a citizen, your citizenship as an immigrant is not so secure as the born citizens are, that it can be taken away for certain crimes, etc. Something that always keeps going, this journey of becoming part. And I think rather than having this image where the immigration and integration process never ends, we should adopt a picture where really becoming part is a process where from the beginning the people are also giving the opportunities to participate. So it's not, I started with the definition of integration thing, and when we try to understand what this concept means, we have to have a picture where it's not just one new person, something coming into something bigger and disappearing within it, but it's a process where by becoming part, also the larger whole changes a little bit. So it's a two-sided process that's been, as someone, Renner Bauberg in the comments actually emphasized, that's even been laid down in EU guidelines back in the time. And there is an understanding, shared understanding of this concept of integration, it really requires also access, etc. So by laying the emphasis on participation, I hope to give some ideas about legal interpretation that really focus on how participation is not just the goal of integration, of being able to know the language sufficiently to participate, know the culture sufficiently to participate, but also part of the path itself, of the process itself. So it's necessary to think through all our legislation around immigration through the lens of how does it hinder or enable participation socially, culturally, and ultimately also politically. So to give an example, when we think about housing, how asylum seekers are housed, how does this affect their possibilities to also join a union, to join a political party, to just otherwise make use of their right to assembly? How does the location of their housing or their means for public transportation affect their ability to participate in social and cultural life, etc.? So I think we need much more an idea of really checking what the host society, the receiving societies provide as opportunities for participating and thereby becoming part